Hello friends, how are you all? I hope you're all doing well. Today's video is very strange, very mysterious, and I know when you read the title, you'll probably wonder what I'm talking about. But friends, today I'm going to tell you a story from my life that you might not believe. A story you might think is purely fictional, but I assure you, what I'm about to tell you is absolutely true and actually happened to me. This is the story of an old radio that has been broadcasting continuously since the year 1976. Yes, friends, you heard that right. I have an old radio in my house that is constantly receiving signals. Apparently, from the year 1976. I know it sounds completely insane, totally impossible. But I'll tell you my entire experience in detail, and then you can decide for yourselves. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon so you get notifications for all my videos. And yes, friends, don't forget to like the video, because this story will challenge your perception and might even inspire you to do some investigating of your own. So let's begin this mysterious journey. It all started about 6 months ago when my grandfather passed away. He was a wonderful person, and we all loved him very much. After he was gone, we had to clear out his house because he lived alone. My mother, father, brother, and I all went to his house to sort through his belongings. It was a very emotional task because his memories were attached to every single thing. We spent days at his house, looking through his things, organizing them, taking some with us, and donating others. One day, I went into his storeroom, which was in the basement. That storeroom hadn't been opened in a very long time. When I opened the door, it was full of dust, spiderwebs, and the smell of old things. I slowly started looking at the items inside. There were old boxers, old books, and some broken furniture. Then, in a corner, I saw an old wooden radio. The radio was very beautiful, despite being so old. Its wood polish was dark brown, and it had some carvings on it. It was a bit heavy when I picked it up. I wiped off the dust and saw it had a few scratches, but its overall condition was good. I have a great fondness for old things, especially vintage electronics. I thought if this radio worked, I could keep it in my room as a decoration. I brought the radio upstairs and showed it to my brother. He said, "Man, this looks really old. Probably from the 1960s or 70s. We searched online and found out that this radio was actually manufactured in 1974. I decided to take the radio home with me. When I got home, I placed it on a shelf in my room. For a few days, it just sat there as a decoration. Then one day, it occurred to me, why not check if it still works? I plugged the radio into a socket, but nothing happened. I realized its internal wiring might be faulty or some parts might not be working. I have a friend named Kashif, who is very good with electronics. He has a degree in electrical engineering. I called him and said, "Hey, I have an old radio. Can you take a look at it?" Kashif came over the next morning and examined the radio. He opened it up and checked the wiring and components inside. Kashif said, "Man, this radio is actually in good condition. There are just some minor issues that I can fix." He fixed some loose wires, cleaned a few parts, and checked some components. After about an hour of work, he connected the radio again. We pressed the power button. And friends, what happened next is something I will never forget. An old sound came from the radio, a static noise, and then suddenly, a perfectly clear voice came through. A voice was announcing dates and times, but the dates he was announcing were not the current dates. A was Saling, March 19th, 1970. Kashif said, "Dude, maybe it's a pre-recorded message playing on a loop." But then the voice started giving the weather forecast. It was talking about what the weather would be like, what the temperature would be. Then it gave some news headlines that were apparently from that time. It was talking about political events, about certain incidents. Kashif and I were both confused about what was happening. Kashif tried to change the radio's frequency. As he turned the dial, the sound changed. There were different stations, different programs, but everything seemed to be from 1976. One station was playing music from that era. Another station had a talk show where people were discussing issues of that time. Kashif said this was very strange. He checked to the radio's frequency bands. We realized the radio was only receiving a few specific frequencies, and on all of them, the content was from 1976. Kashif suggested that maybe there was a nearby radio station replaying old broadcasts. Or maybe it was some kind of prank. But friends, that explanation wasn't satisfying because these broadcasts sounded completely live. There were weather updates that seemed to be in real time, and news that was being announced like breaking news. An announcer said, "The current time is 5:30 p.m. We looked at the clock. The actual time was 5:30 p.m. But the date being announced was from 1976. Kashif experimented with the radio for a while longer. He adjusted the antenna. He tried different settings. Then he opened the radio again to check the circuit. He carefully examined every component. Then he noticed something strange. A component that is normally in a radio is missing from this one. In its place was something else that he couldn't identify. Kashif said, "Man, I'm seeing this component for the first time. It's not standard. It might be custom-made, or someone modified it." We looked at the component closely. It had some symbols on it that we had never seen before. Kashif took a photo of the component and said he would research it. From that day on, the radio continued to play in my room. I listened to it and observed it every day. I noticed that the radio broadcasted the exact same day, March 19th, 1976, every single day. The same programs, the same announcements. It was like a loop, but a very detailed and realistic one. I decided I was going to solve this mystery. I started doing research. I searched online for what happened on March 19th, 1976. I looked up the news headlines, events, and weather reports for that date. And friends, what I found on the internet perfectly matched what was being broadcast on the radio. One day, I conducted an experiment. I started recording the radio. I recorded the entire day's broadcast. Then I compared that recording with archives from 1976 available online. There were some archives in museums or libraries that had preserved radio programs from that time. When I did the comparison, I was shocked. Everything was exactly the same. Every announcement, every song, every commercial, everything matched perfectly. This confirmed for me that this radio wasn't broadcasting something random. It was somehow genuinely receiving a signal from 1976. But how was this possible? Radio waves are real. Old signals travel through space and go light years away. How could they come back to Earth? One researched this topic more. I read time travel theories. I read physics concepts like wormholes and time loops. I also looked into paranormal theories. Some people say that time behaves differently in certain places, that the past and present can overlap. I thought maybe my grandfather had hidden this radio in the storeroom for a specific reason. Maybe he knew about the radio's power. I asked my mom if she knew anything about this radio. She said, "Yes, son. This radio was your grandfather's favorite. He used to listen to the news and music on it every day." Then she told me something interesting. She said that my grandfather always used to say that this radio was special, not an ordinary radio. He never explained in detail how it was special, but he was very attached to it. When the radio broke, he was very upset and kept trying to fix it, but no technician could repair it, so he put it in the storeroom and never let anyone touch it. Hearing this made me even more curious. I thought maybe my grandfather knew something about this radio that he never shared. I started checking his old things more carefully. His diaries, his letters, his documents. One day, I found one of his old diaries. I started reading it. In it, he had written about his daily routine, his thoughts. Then I found an entry where he wrote about this radio. He had written, "Today, I found a strange radio. Its frequency bands are not normal. It's receiving some different signals. I don't know how it's happening, but it's fascinating." There were more entries in the diary about this radio. My grandfather had written that he bought the radio from an old antique shop. The shop owner told him it belonged to a scientist who experimented with time and radio waves. That scientist's name was Dr. Rahman. He had discovered something strange while experimenting, but he died before anything could come of it. I decided to research Dr. Rahman. I searched online, but couldn't find any specific information. Then I checked old libraries and old newspapers. After a lot of effort, I found an old newspaper clipping that mentioned Dr. Rahman. The article said that Dr. Rahman was a physicist who was working on the relationship between radio frequency and time. He believed that by using specific radio frequencies, signals from the past could be captured. He was working on the theory that electromagnetic waves can sometimes travel through different time dimensions, and if we find the right frequency, we can listen to past broadcasts. Reading this blew my mind. Did Dr. Ramon really discover something? And was this radio the result of that discovery? I read the article further. It said that Dr. Ramon's death occurred under mysterious circumstances. There was an accident in his lab, and he died there. His research was left incomplete. I did more research and found out that some of Dr. Ramon's notes and documents were preserved in a university archive. I contacted the university and made an appointment. I went there and checked his documents. There were a lot of technical papers, calculations, diagrams. I couldn't understand all of it completely, because it was very advanced physics, but I found one document where he mentioned his radio design. He had written that he designed a special component that could isolate specific temporal frequencies. This component was very different from normal radio components. He had also attached its blueprint. When I saw that blueprint, I remembered the component Kashif had seen in my radio. It looked exactly the same. So, it was confirmed that this radio was indeed designed by Dr. Ramon and was part of his time radio experiment. Now I had a lot of information, but I was still confused about how it worked. I shared all the information with Kashif. Kashif also looked at the documents and tried to understand how this technology could work. Kashif explained that according to some theories, when electromagnetic waves are broadcast, they theoretically exist in space forever. They get weaker with distance, but don't disappear completely. If there is a technology that can amplify these weak signals and isolate frequencies from a specific time period, then theoretically, we can listen to past broadcasts. Dr. Ramon had probably developed something like that. The component he designed probably worked as a temporal filter that only received and amplified signals from March 19, 1976. But why only this specific date? That was still a mystery. I investigated further. I researched that date. What was special about March 19, 1976? I checked historical events, astronomical events. Then I found out that a solar flare had occurred on that day. A very strong solar flare that affected Earth's magnetic field. Radio communications were disturbed that day. Perhaps Dr. Ramon had used that specific solar event for his experiment. Maybe the electromagnetic conditions on that day were such that he successfully captured a past signal, and his radio permanently locked onto that signal. Now, I have decided to preserve this radio. It's not just an old object. It's an important piece of science and technology. I told Kashif that we should carefully document this radio. We took detailed photos, measurements, and made circuit diagrams. I also contacted some universities where there are researchers in physics and electronics. I told them the story and gave them information about the radio. Some researchers showed interest and said they would like to study this radio. But friends, I've decided I will never permanently give this radio to anyone. It's a memento of my grandfather and a unique discovery. I will keep it with me, but can give researchers access to study it under proper supervision. Even today, that radio is in my room. I turn it on every day and get a glimpse into the world of March 19th, 1976. It's a strange feeling, friends. When I listen to that radio, I feel like I'm time traveling. I can hear what people were talking about that day, what music they were listening to, which news was important. Sometimes I wonder if this technology can be developed further. Can we receive signals from different dates? Can we send messages to the past? All these questions spin in my mind. This experience has taught me a lot. I've learned that there is still so much in the world that we don't know. The possibilities of science and technology are endless. Sometimes, reality is stranger than fiction. Friends, if any of you have a mysterious object, some old technology that shows unexplained phenomena, please share it in the comments. Maybe together we can discover something new. And if you found this story interesting, please like and share the video. Don't forget to subscribe because I'll keep sharing more such mysterious stories and experiences. I hope you liked this video. Remember, there's still so much in the world we don't know. Keep an open mind and stay curious. Maybe one day you too will discover something extraordinary. Thanks for